Miyu, Miyu, Machachik no Madam Geisler, no the no night by Kuich H Shotella. Good morning. And for some of my colleagues that are here from the East Coast, I guess good afternoon. I don't know. My name is Adam Geisler. I'm a citizen and enrolled member of the La Jolla Band of Luiseño Indians from Southern California. And I currently am the division chief for the Tribal Connectivity and Nation-to-Nation Coordination Division at NTIA. I contemplated doing a slide deck for this, but to be real honest, I'm going to give you guys some updates. And instead of doing death by PowerPoint, we're going to get to what I think you guys want to know, which are probably questions and answers that you're looking for. And that's why we're here. I also just want to, before we go too far into the talking points here, I do want to acknowledge Ms. Finday's comments and also the gentleman from the Pueblo of Laguna. A good juxtaposition there of, I think, things that we're doing well and things that we can improve upon. And for everybody that has gotten to know me or my team, we're okay with having tough conversations and having frank conversations. And so I think under the premise of that, that's why we're here. So as you see me or you see members of my team that are going to be here throughout the week, pull us aside if there's something tough, pull us aside if there's something good. We want to hear all those pieces, and we genuinely do care about the work that we're doing. I understand that maybe it's not always perfect, but we are trying our best with the resources that we have. Before we go too far, I also want to acknowledge NTTA and the work that Sonia and Godfrey and the team have done to really, I think, build a great convening of tribes from across the country, as well as industry, to better understand how to address the digital divide. I have a lot of respect for this organization. So much so that we are actually going to be piggybacking this event with our in-person Tribal Broadband Leaders Network starting on Thursday. I also want to acknowledge the Gila River Indian community and Governor Lewis. For those of you that have never met Governor Lewis or don't know this tribe in particular, they're a powerhouse, both in their leadership and in their the way in which they navigate issues in Indian country. So I do want to acknowledge that we're on their lands today, and I want to thank Gila River for always being a gracious host. I haven't seen Belinda yet, but hopefully you get a chance to catch up with her and some of the Gila River folks. All right, so let's just jump right in. We'll start with the first topic, which is NOFO number 1, TBCP number 1 status update. So you heard equitable distribution as a primary topic. We have a handful of big infrastructure awards that are left that we will likely be making wink, wink, nod, nod, probably later this week. So Rebecca, you're not going to have to update the slides today, but you might have to at the end of the week. In terms of equitable distribution, I got to say that this has been a labor of love for our team in upholding the trust relationship and, more importantly, the requirements of the law to distribute these dollars equitably. And we're in the process of going through both single tribe equitable distribution applications, as well as consortium tribes equitable distribution applications. And what I mean by that is we're kind of taking one bite out of the apple at a time. There's a lot of tribes that are going to be receiving direct funding from equitable distribution to either do subsidies or other forms of broadband use and adoption activities. We also have tribes that are going to be using those funds to do network deployment. And one thing that I really do take a lot of pride in, the work that our team, our legal counsel, and our leadership has put forward is a level of flexibility to try to navigate this process in a way that makes sense for all of you that are going to be receiving the equitable distribution dollars. That being said, a number of you have gone through the curing process with us and are anxiously awaiting the announcement of those awards. And what I can tell you is that we have those in process. And so just hang on a little bit longer. I know you've heard me say that for quite some time, but I am going to ask for a little bit more patience as we make our way through that process. As you heard Andy, Mr. Burke, elaborate earlier on, ensuring that we're not duplicating federal dollars is a big priority, both for the administration. We have a mandate not to do that, not to duplicate federal funds in the law. And so the time that it takes to make sure that we're being diligent around these processes is real, and that is a part of the reasoning for why these are taking a little bit longer. I also want to acknowledge that we have two arms of oversight here from the federal government. I never run from auditors. I do believe that, one, they are good people. Everybody has a job, needs to put food on the table. But more importantly, I think that the report card is important for us to know how we do in government. As a former tribal leader myself, I've never been shy about the criticism, whether it's putting it on heavy when I was in that role or receiving it in this role. So I do want to acknowledge my colleagues from the Office of Inspector General and also from the GAO. I think that we all have tough jobs ahead of us in managing and overseeing the implementation of one of the largest infrastructure investments in United States history. So, equitable distribution, single tribe is going to be coming soon. Right behind that, we are working on the consortiums. So some of you are part of a consortium application of 5, 10, 50, 60 tribes. And that has also taken us some time to go through deconfliction, especially if you're looking at infrastructure deployment. Because again, we got to make sure that we're not duplicating federal dollars in relationship to those funds. All right, NOFO number 2, in terms of timing, and I don't want to steal the thunder from our Assistant Secretary, Alan Davidson. If you're going to be here with us on Thursday, he's delivering the keynote. But I'll give you a little bit of an update on the timing of NOFO 2. I am doing everything I can to get as many awards out related from NOFO 1 before we launch NOFO 2. And I'll tell you guys the premise of it. If you had a $40 million project, and it's because you were in the middle of a really rural state, like maybe Alaska, or another part of the country, and your neighbor was funded round 1 for big infrastructure money, I really don't want to have folks starting on another application process until you know what the status of your neighbors is, in case maybe it doesn't cost you $40 million, maybe it's $4 million, maybe it's $400,000. And so I really am trying to be thoughtful. We are trying to be thoughtful about the timing of the second NOFO in relationship to the balance. I've also heard, frankly, from a lot of you about the timing and the release of another NOFO. I know we've done some consultation on the issue, but it is also, I'm very pragmatic in understanding that we're not the only game in town, right? A lot of you are going through your reporting for Treasury and a lot of the other newer funded programs that are out there. And I've heard from a good handful of you about concerns if we were to drop a NOFO tomorrow, while you would take it on, it would probably freak a lot of people out because of the existing workload that a lot of you are dealing with other programs. I think I heard it earlier. Actually, it was discussed on the panel. We have 40, I think, what did Godfrey use? We have 48 programs that we're running. Now we got to build another office. That's real. I come from a tribe that I had to wear 15 hats, and so I can appreciate what some of you may be dealing with. In terms of the funding amount, it's another curious question. We're not done making awards, and so I also want to make sure that before we publish our next NOFO, that we know the total dollar amount, right? It's important that we can actually publish what the total dollar amount is going to be, and I do think that it's important that we have to close out our first round in order to genuinely tell you how much is available in the second round. All that being said, guys, I'm really hopeful here over the as we start moving our way into this springtime that we're going to be able to see a NOFO coming out here in the next few months, if not sooner, unless the political winds push it sooner. But just so you guys have a little bit of an understanding of where I'm coming from, trying to lead this program, and also what I'm hearing from all of you in terms of timing, that's where we stand. Now, another hot topic that is out there is I did hear BEAD discussed. And one of the things that I wanted to just share with everybody here is how many of you guys are talking to your state currently? Good handful of you? Good? Okay, good. That's good news. What I wanted to share with you related to BEAD is that there actually is a waiver provision in the BEAD NOFO for tribal projects within the BEAD program. So if any of you are meeting with your states and they come back to you and they say, you got to give us 25% match for your project in the BEAD plan for the state, you can kindly share with your neighbor that they just need to ask for the waiver. And we have a waiver process that has been established for the 25% match component. So it's a good carrot. I'm also going to put out there that if you're going to go talk to your states, you can say, hey, you should really look hard at my project because we don't necessarily need a match. And that I think is a very positive thing to help entice and prioritize projects as the states are culminating those plans. The other thing I wanted to mention was that if you are going to participate in BEAD, and we're going to have, again, a workshop coming up here later on in the week for our in-person Tribal Broadband Leaders Network, be prepared to share your information. And what I mean by that is, in order to develop a plan to connect every household in your community, that means your plan is going to have to be shared with the funding mechanisms and sources, which is the state that you're working with, or states. Some of you straddle multiple states, right? So be prepared for that to happen. You should also be prepared for the states to be sending out Dear Tribal Leader letters asking to consult. And under the BEAD program, tribal consultation is a requirement. It's not some fictitious concept of a box check. And I actually want to acknowledge, I saw the state of Utah is actually here today. There's going to be other states that are coming to help or to engage with all of you and better understand how consultation should be occurring under the BEAD process. And I do want to just acknowledge for those states that did come out here for making the effort. I do want to say thank you for making the effort and for learning and rolling up your sleeves and understanding how consultative processes should work. Again, that being said, we are prepared, watch the auditors here, we are prepared to reject states' plans for BEAD if they do not, in good faith, conduct consultation with tribes. And even though I'm not the director of the BEAD program or associate administrator or assistant secretary, I am confident that our team is prepared to reject states' plans if they do not conduct meaningful consultation. Now, that is a two-way street. So for some of you, you don't like sharing your data or you don't want to share your data with the states. And I first off just want to say I respect that. There are some tribes in this country that have absolutely no interest in receiving federal dollars or sharing any of their information with any form of government other than their own. And I want to say that we respect that. We respect all forms of the way in which sovereignty is exercised by tribes. But what I am going to ask you to do is, if you do not want to play ball with the state for whatever reason, if it's a data share issue, maybe you just don't have the best relationship with your state. I will say this could be an opportunity to build a better relationship, but maybe you don't want to work with the state. Let them know. When they send the Dear Tribal Leader letter to consult and you have no interest in participating in the consultation or you don't want to work with the state at this time, please just send them some sort of a notification or response back. Because we are going to be asking that the states provide and demonstrate to us how they went about conducting a consultation for the BEAD program. All right, that's BEAD out of the way. Digital equity. Okay. In short, later this week, we are going to be delivering an update on the status of the set aside for the digital equity program. So how many of you guys submitted LOIs to NTIA? I figured a good chunk of the room did. Yep. The good news is that we received an overwhelming response I think we received over 470 LOIs from tribes or tribal entities, which is great. And I'm going to encourage you to continue applying and sharing and demonstrating the needs that exist for your communities, because if you don't respond to all these different things, then people don't know that it's a need. Now, with that, we are navigating, and I don't want to steal my boss's thunder. So we are I got to talk like a Fed. We are navigating how best to deploy the dollars that we have available to us at this time in order to meet the needs, the digital equity needs of your communities. What does that all really mean, Adam? It means that I think we got to make sure we have enough money to have a meaningful deployment of the digital equity dollars. And so there's more to come later on in the week on how we're contemplating that. Sustainability. I just want to thank the individuals that have been raising this topic of conversation in relationship to sustainability. Godfrey, I think, has hit the nail on the head about what a lot of you are thinking about. It's one thing to go build the car. It's another thing to be able to maintain the car long term, right? They take insurance, and I like the analogy. I might steal that at some point. I guess I just did. But I guess the point being that how you sustain these networks is all going to look different, no different than how you are exercising each of your respective tribes' sovereignty. I really appreciated the tribal leader from Hemis that was up here earlier, who talked about, from the Pueblo of Hemis, talked about using treasury dollars. I thought that was a great example of an interim solution. Maybe it's not the long-term solution, but I thought that was a good example of using all the funds available to try to find solutions that are out there. I also want to just encourage you that to think about how your own tribe's government enterprises also might be able to offset or support the broadband deployment and operational needs of your community. I know that that's not an easy thing to say for some tribes. I come from a small non-gaming tribe in Southern California. Yes, they exist. No, not all California tribal guys have casinos or per cap, for my friends here. But our tribe and many other tribes are actually looking at how to sustain these networks through Taro, through other enterprise revenues that they have. I've even heard that some tribes are baking it into their overall enterprise operations budget. So there isn't going to be a one size fits all, but I did want to point out that you should probably take a look at your existing operations and enterprises. I also want to hammer home the ACP. I can't tell you how beneficial that program has been for those that are able to utilize it. All that being said, we have our colleagues from the FCC that are going to be here. If you are standing up your network or you have challenges related to either registering for ACP or receiving the reimbursement, if you are an ISP, I think you need to raise that to our colleagues over at the FCC. I believe that they are really actively wanting to hear what the barriers are and try to fix that. Lastly, I guess I would just leave you with, it has been not quite a year since I was here last, but it has been a wild last 2 years that I've spent at NTIA trying to get this program first as a detailee and then I guess as a formal career permanent person over here at NTIA. But I can tell you that I was the first employee on this program when it got started. And the last time I was here, I did not have a full team. I was looking at the chart that Rebecca put up earlier, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. We had like 6 people to try to administer, $3 billion at that point. And I can proudly say today that we not only have what I joke, I call a 15-man band. We have 15 folks on our team, plus we have Danae Wilson, who's technically on detail from NTIA in the White House. We have really built a good cadre of tribally focused people to focus on tribal challenges and solutions. And that's not normal for those of you that have spent time in and around federal service or in and around the federal government, which is all of my Native colleagues here. A majority of my team comes from Indian country. They live in Indian country. They obviously work in Indian country because they get to work from home. And those folks that are not Native on my team have spent over a decade in the field working for tribes, like, for example, out of the Great Lakes region, like Theron Rutna. And so I do want to acknowledge that at NTIA, we've actually made a significant investment in promoting sustainability, not just from the end user standpoint, meaning where all of you have received your grants or will be receiving your grants, but also internally from a support standpoint. And that isn't That isn't normal. So I'm very grateful to our leadership for that. One other, I said the last thing, but I want to highlight one other item. It was talked about earlier about what are some of the things that are being done across government to simplify. And I appreciated the gentleman's question in the back earlier about what are we all doing to try to talk together and work together. And and in a perfect world, Congress would issue a law that has the same set of standards, timelines, speed requirements, et cetera. And the reality is that that's not the landscape that we're all operating in, which makes this a little difficult. All that being said, there is the White House Council on Native American Affairs, which is one place that we are convening to talk more broadly about the infrastructure deployment in this country and broadband in particular. I also want to acknowledge that Ms. Danae Wilson leads a Tribal Broadband working group on behalf of the Office of Science, Technology, and Policy at the White House. So I do want to just acknowledge, I don't want this to be empty. Believe me, we see the issues. In terms of rectifying it, I think we're going to try to take things as far as we can in terms of collaborating and trying to come up with processes. And you heard Mr. Burke talk about deconfliction and deduplication. But I'm also just going to say what we heard earlier from Godfrey about the role that you have in DC in advocating. I, again, am a former tribal leader. I'm very cognizant now, spending 8 years on this side, meaning in the federal government, that your letters do matter. Your voice in DC does matter. And while I can acknowledge and agree with 150 of the things that you've said, there is a limitation that I think each of me and my other federal colleagues eventually run into, which does really require acts of Congress to address in the long term. I'm just going to be just straight with you. I think that some of the things that you may want, if we talk later, don't be shocked if I tell you you should really talk to this person, and this person, but you should really think about a trip to DC to make sure people hear what it is that what you're saying. And I guess I'll end with this before we go into the Q&A. Indian country is one of the most unique places where we can actually engage, where you all are able to engage directly with the federal government, your representatives, in a way that, frankly, my non-native colleagues don't always understand. I think I have to laugh sometimes when I hear from some of my colleagues that they said, well, wait a minute, so-and-so got a meeting with this senator or this congressional person. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the normal run of business for us in Indian country. That is our local government in a lot of ways. And I just want to impress upon you that your voice matters in this process. Your voice matters in this program. Your voice matters with this administration. I've seen that clearly, and I'm not a political person. I'm just providing the feedback from what I've seen them do over the last couple years in trying to get this program, and others stood up in supporting tribal consultation, in upholding and developing additional consultative policies, and then even taking action. My ask for you, as I just round this out, is that you continue just to be open and candid with me and my team. Bring to us the pain points, please. I do want to know about those. I'm going to do everything I can to tell you what I can do, what I can't do, and what I think I can do. But just know that as we continue to get down this path, we've got $1.7 billion out the door, which also brings a lot of scrutiny, obviously. And we have, another 1.3-ish to get out the door as well. And those are dollars that we know need to get into these communities. They need to get into your communities. I'm a father of 4. Getting my kids through the pandemic and getting them through the education process and understanding what telehealth and teleeducation and all these other components mean matters. I could also say that from an economic development standpoint, this country has not experienced what tribes are prepared to share with the world once these connections are done. We have a lot of really innovative historical knowledge that exists in each and every one of your communities, that once we have these networks built out, what the world is going to see and experience from all of you, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what that looks like. I'm a believer that at NTIA we are a part of a living history. The chapter didn't close when whatever Custer died and the buffalo got shot. And whatever you heard in high school or middle school. We're part of something bigger. And I also just want to impress upon my federal colleagues that are here that you're part of a living history, that this is not a one and done situation. So with all that, I just want to again acknowledge NTTA for the time. My team will be here obviously throughout today, tomorrow. We're piggybacking this event with the Tribal Broadband Leaders Network. So if you are able to stay Thursday and Friday, we are going to be rolling up our sleeves and we are going to be jumping into all kinds of fun. We're going to be going over we're going to do a self-assessment for ourselves. We're going to take a look in the mirror. We're going to hand out sticky notes and we're going to have you guys tell us where we're doing good, bad, and where things are ugly. We're going to be doing an overview of the FCC mapping process. And if you are looking to apply in round 2, you really want to get familiar with the fabric map and the challenge process because there might be some changes in NOFO number 2 that may tie to that. We're also going to do a deep dive on BEAD itself and make sure that all of you know who your points of contact are, both within the states and over at the Fed side. We're going to be doing a hearing from our keynote speakers, Assistant Secretary Davidson, Danae Wilson. We also are going to be doing regional breakouts for those of you that have been awarded or are highly likely to be awarded. If you're still under consideration, make sure you know what's coming in the post-award landscape and in the 45-day SOP, standard operating procedure. We're also going to spend some time on digital equity and talk about sustainability, talk about states' plans. And then lastly, we're going to hear from Tribal Awards. We're going to hear from Kimball. I heard somebody mention how great Kimball is. She is incredible. Anna Hoffman, also from BNC up in Alaska, is going to be here to talk about, and they're both going to be highlighting their projects and some of the lessons learned. We're going to wrap, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to hear on Friday about fraud, waste, and abuse from our friends over at the you got to make sure, well, they're both look at fraud, waste, and abuse, but it's going to be the Office of Inspector General. And then we have an FCC listening session about the digital discrimination listening sessions that they're doing. So if you guys aren't aware, I don't want to steal their thunder because we're going to be here later, but the FCC is wanting to understand where digital discrimination is occurring. And I think this room probably has a good amount of examples to share. And again, if I haven't hammered it home this morning, I'll just say it one more time. Your voice matters. I know everybody's tired from what we've gone through over the last 2 years, but if I can do anything to help juice you up, get you a coffee, got to keep it under $5 because of ethics, like any of those things, like let's do it because we're not done. We're not done. There's a lot of work to do. We should be excited. Let's continue to try to stay motivated. Let's continue to lift each other up. Let's continue to hold each other accountable. And most importantly, let's do what we can to help the communities that we all are here to serve. So with that, I'll pause and take any questions that there might be. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Adam. Nice to see you. It's Adam.
Good to see you, Adam. Yeah.
So for the tribal nations who did not get funded, if there could be some feedback that would inform applications for round 2, that would be amazing because it's hard to operate in a vacuum. No one likes getting rejected. No one likes hearing no, but we all want to grow from the experience and we want to be better at future applications. The best way to do that is to get feedback. So we heard from the other gentleman who wrote a letter, never got back. So if there can be some mechanism for us to learn and to improve, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Feedback loop. I can say that we have a process in the NOFO for folks that are unsuccessful that we have sent letters out notifying folks that they're unsuccessful, and we engage essentially in a meeting with them. What I can say is that on the metrics, there's going to be some changes for NOFO too. So as much as, sitting down and getting into the weeds, now I got lawyers, so there's always limitations, Adam, on when you start getting the lawyers involved to some extent on what we do and do not share at Commerce. But what I will say is that here's the high level for NOFO 2. Tell your story. And what I mean by that is tell your story, provide the level of data that we're asking for in relationship to the metrics. You're going to see a little bit of a change to have more information collected on the front end of NOFO 2, which I think will alleviate, frankly, some of the time delays that we all were frustrated by. And I would also just say, do your best to tell the truth about what the story of your community is. And that means the demographics, that means the connectivity, that means the number of households, that means all of those pieces when you're looking at round 2. This program, I guess I just wanted to dispel one myth. I heard a lot of discussion over the last couple of years that this program was so focused on shovel readiness, and that couldn't be any further from I shouldn't say any further from the truth. It's relevant, but what matters is those that are unserved and that have a really heavily impacted unserved population. And all that being said, it's Indian country. Like, that's most of Indian country. So that doesn't make this job any easier. But what I can tell you, Adam, is focus on the metrics, answer those things truthfully, and tell the best story that you can that demonstrates the highest degree of need. One more.
Hey there, Adam. So I had a question related to BEAD. You had mentioned that the state's ability to consult with tribes is going to be taken into consideration during the evaluation process. How do you define a proper amount of tribal consultation? And if there is a tribe who feels they are being left out of the state's plans, is there a way for them to work with NTIA to help build a better relationship with the state, or to at least be considered during your evaluation process?
That's a good question. I'm also going to use that as an opportunity to tease a little bit. You really should participate on Thursday when we sit down and go over the BEAD breakout deep dive, because that's exactly the types of things that we want to get into the weeds on. In short, we did not give a canned description of what constitutes consultation, because what I've seen in my time is that consultation looks different between tribes, and it looks different even between states. And what I mean by that is when you have Alaska that has over 229 federally recognized tribes, 12 regional corporations and nonprofits, and then you try to compare what consultation looks like there with Maine, right? We didn't want to box people in, I guess is what I was trying to get at. Now, that being said, the states have asked what constitutes good faith, and so we have put together a guidance template for them, which essentially is send out a Dear Tribal Leader letter, be upfront in that letter about what you're asking to consult upon, and then do follow-up. And so that's going to look a little bit different for everybody.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for all the work you do at NTIA. It's really appreciated. I have a question about what you said earlier about sharing data with states.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's, there's baseline information that's required, but there's hesitancy there, and it's justified hesitancy that a lot of tribes share. What assurances can NTIA give to say that that data is going to be protected? Because once it goes to the state, there's not a lot of information or knowledge about what happens to it after that.
I can't. As much as I wish I could give assurances, I can't. And I think that is really the difficulty. I'm really excited about BEAD because I think it's going to provide a unique opportunity that we haven't seen to connect unserved communities, tribal communities. But I'm also a realist, going through compact negotiations with my own state, going through water settlement negotiations. I can understand the sensitivities of sharing that data and how that data may be used. And I can't really give you there's no safeguards that I can offer other than what I would suggest to all of you, if you're going to engage with the state and you want to share information, is that you guys really spend time talking about how that information is going to be used and box that in some form of an agreement. Okay. All right, thank you very much for your time. Amen.